Several years back, I went to California with a friend, and we went through Arizona. Going through Arizona, we went through Jerome, and I was offered a job tattooing. So I went back there in October. I had a good time. While I was there, I got a motorcycle learner permit, and I bought this little motorcycle. And in Arizona, you can drive on the roads, just not at night, not on the highways. And I had this dual purpose. It was an XT600. I was driving up and down. I went up to a place just right on the edge of town, small town, called Gold King Mine. And I had heard there was a guy there who might be interested in making a movie with me. I had some money saved, and I was looking for an excuse to buy a camera. So I went and talked to him. It was an old lode mine, but it was now a tourist trap. And this man would stand at the trough and help you pan for gold out of the sand. And his name was Gale. I told him my idea, and he thought it was a great idea. In fact, he had the whole movie idea. He wanted to call it grub stake. Now, in the mining world, the term grub stake refers to if a miner knows where the lode is, knows where the silver, knows where the gold is, they need to rustle up some money to buy supplies to go get it. That money is called grub stake. So I thought, hey, that'll be fun. We'll make a fictional movie about this guy, and then along the way we'll have an instructional segment for here's how to use a dry washer, here's how to pan for gold, here's how to prospect, these sorts of things. And so I thought it was a fun idea. And I've bought and sold land on eBay multiple times, so I know that people sell mining claims on eBay. It's nothing I would normally ever think about buying. But given this circumstance, I thought it might be a fun thing just to look and see what was available. Well, someone was selling a 160-acre claim, which is as big as they get. You can merge 4 claims together, 4 40-acre claims. And this was in old mining country. It was a placer claim, which means it was just the sand. It wasn't anything in the rock, anything that was pulled out. But this was all a drain area. I mean, the flat, they call it Minnehaha Flats. I'll just tell you where it is. And so the claim was basically for this whole area. And it was like $3,000, which is kind of a good chunk of change. But I was kind of just looking, I was on a bigger adventure, let me just say. So I had this giant oversized van. And the yard sales in Cottonwood, the town right at the base of the mountain, Jerome, were the best. The best. I just kept buying stuff. I had a telescope, I had a couple rifles, I had a crossbow. I had a ton of food and stuff in this van. Way more stuff than I should have had in a van. It was full of stuff. And so I decided one Saturday I'm going to go look at this. And my boss was pretty upset because I was hired to hold down Saturdays. But with a little persuasion, he relented. And so I got driving. And eventually, as a crow flies, it was pretty close. But, getting back in there, the roads weren't all that well marked and everything. And at one point, I ended up back on the main road. And I already spent a few hours. So I said, I'm going to still make a go of it. And a few more hours later, I end up at this turn. And the turn, the sign clearly said, you really need a 4x4 if you're going to keep going. I'm paraphrasing, but I had a relatively high clearance, and I've gotten out of situations before. So I made a mistake, and I went down that road. My friend had given me a map book a couple of years before of Arizona. The ones that's divided into squares, and each square is a page. Well, in that book, it showed a solid line going across. And in the modern books, it shows a dashed line, if that tells you anything. So I turn down the road, and I go down the hill. The first hill, the first eighth of a mile I'm on this road, there's physically no way I can get back up it. Like, none. I've got this giant van, and I'm going down the road like. Grrr. At some points during the ride, I'm sliding, careening just slightly, gritting my teeth, going, "Oh, if I roll this van, it's gonna be a mess." Thankfully, I didn't roll the van. But I had to be very tactical, and I was driving down this rugged 4x4 road with a van that had no business being back there. Well, at one point, like, the tire was like this. The tire should be like this, and the rock was like this, and the tire, I put it in reverse and go around the rock. Anyway, I bust a tire. I'm so far back up in there. I had a cell phone with, sometimes I'd have a little bit of signal, but I didn't have a charger on it. And I was a little nervous, but I successfully dug out a little bit of the area. I jacked it up as far as I could. I got the new tire on there. Well, it wasn't a new tire. It was a worn out spare, but it was a functional tire. I was so proud of myself. I took a picture. I took a couple of pictures. And I get driving. A quarter mile later, boom. Same tire is gone. Later, I realized that I'd actually busted up that running board and bent it. And it was the running board that had slashed both tires. It wasn't the rocks. But here I am, middle of nowhere, literally as far back in there as you could get. Thankfully, I was right by a mine. And as luck would have it, I was only a mile or so from from where I was going. And there was no getting out of there that night. I was able to get a cell call out, although I didn't know if it was entirely received to my friend. And it was only the next day that some 4x4 four-wheelers came through and got my location, and they called it in, and a sheriff came and got me. But that night, the night I was there, I was, what? What did I do? What am I doing here? What was I thinking? You know? But I had a rifle, and I had some thermals, and I had some acid somebody had given me for a tattoo tip, and I built a fire up by the mine, and there was another van that was all shot up, and I was thinking, well, maybe I'll just leave my van here, you know, put a, hey, I'm free for yours to take, enjoy, you know. I was thinking about these things, like maybe I'll come back with my friend. Another guy in the apartment area where I was living, he lived for 4x4. He literally had tires as tall up to my chest and a whole second set of them in the back of his Toyota. That's what he lived for. I mean, in retrospect, I should have given him gas money and he would have taken me there and had a blast. Instead, I ended up getting my van stuck. So there I am. And the coyotes started howling like, hey, something new in the canyon. And I just fired off a round. Crickets. No more coyotes. A friend had told me even if you have like a starter pistol, it'll scare them off and they won't come near you. But in retrospect, I'm thinking it was a very good idea because mountain lions, I mean, it was a fertile enough area that I'm sure mountain lions would have had better things to eat than a dangerous human. But having fired that gun off, I was sure there was not going to be any animals messing with me. So the next day I'm like thinking, okay, what am I doing? I got the call out, but I haven't seen any help yet. You know, what am I going to do? So I say, well, I might just leave the van with a note. Later, well, I'll get there. So I decided I'm going to bury some of that food I have. I got a Rubbermaid tote and I filled it up with food and I went to looking for a place to bury it. And I was hunting. I found a place. Oh yeah, I'll remember this. It's all real evident, good, perfect. So I started digging this hole, digging a hole. I get it big enough to fit one of those smaller, like Rubbermaid totes, you know. And it's about big enough. I'm gonna take one more scoop and then go get it. I take one more scoop and it just caves in. It goes. Poof. At first I jumped back thinking it might be a rat nest or something. And I was nervous because, you know, wild animals, who knows, rabies. I look at it, I'm like thinking, maybe there's treasure there. There's an old gold mine. I was burying something here. And I looked and there was these marker rocks. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, there might actually be something here. I'm gonna go back there, get the food, come back here, and dig out the hole and see if there's something there. So I leave the shovel. I go back to the thing. I'm rustling up the food. Before that, yeah, some four-wheelers had come through and got my position and called me in. So I'm rustling. I'm getting the food together, and a sheriff pulls up from this side. And I hardly slept at all, like almost none. And I had taken some acid the night before, so I was a little bit on like. And then from this other side, like, not 5 minutes later, another sheriff pulls up from the other direction. I'm like, oh shit. So I get out, I'm like, thank you! Am I gonna have to pay for you to save me? I think I'm gonna leave my van here. He's like, what? That's felony littering. You're gonna get a ticket, go to jail, and have to pay for the tow job, but probably more. It's like, oh yeah, no. I'm not gonna do it. Well, let me take your picture just in case. It's like, would you send me copies? You never sent me copies. But so I was like, oh shit, well, fuck it, Actually, at that time, I had some cuts on my fingers that I had gotten infected some. I'll tell you that story because it's super fascinating. Super fascinating. It's good advice, frankly. But anyway, so he didn't want anything to do with me. I was at that point I was out of water. I said, oh yeah, and he's like, guns? Like, yeah. I was like, oh, here it is. It's loaded. There's not one in the chamber. He's like, stand there. I said, okay. I started chatting with him. He's like, no, stand behind the vehicle. I'm like, all right. He calls it in, I mean, nothing. But at the end of it, he's like, yeah. I said, would you just take this gun because I don't want to leave it here. And I don't want to be carrying it around town. Because he was just going to drop me off in St. Joe. Is St. Joe? No. Prescott. Yeah, Prescott Valley there. He's just going to drop me off. And I didn't want to be people walking around with a rifle. Like, hey. And, but he hauled me back. And he kept my gun for me, thankfully. And he gave me the bullets, though, because everything they have to check in each bullet with a separate form. He's like, just take the bullets. And I was like, thanks. So, my friend was so mad. He was so mad. He was mad. It was like parents coming and getting their kid. In fact, he even said that. It's like coming and getting their kid after they caused some problems and they were picked up by the police. I was in the back seat, like they had to drive over Mingus Mountain to come get me. And I paid him $20, but he was just like, he was so mad. But so that was just before Thanksgiving. And my van was up in there, and it was full of stuff. And, things can only stay on back roads for so long before they are too vandalized to tow out. So the next day was Thanksgiving. I call it NASTO. Thankfully, they were able to come get me. And it was as unlucky as as awkwardly unlucky as that situation was. It was incredibly lucky. They happened to have a Chevy van in their lot that was for junk with almost brand new tires on it. And so it was $1,000 tow. It was $500 down, and then when we got back, I paid him another. It was subject to estimation when we got back, but I paid him another $500, and they gave me a whole set of tires. And then that's when I started driving away. I was like, "What's that sound?" I get out and I'm like, "Oh, the running board is rubbing on that tire. That's what had happened before." So nice enough guys, they get out a bench grinder and grind off the part of the running board. So I freed up my tire so I could drive home. So before that though, I show up, get in the tow truck, we get going. We're just driving along. I'm like, $150 an hour, $150 an hour. Okay, just be patient, Josh. These people will have you over a barrel, and you just want to be like as cordial and nice as you can, because from experience, I know that if I get impatient, I can definitely cause people to not like me. So we're driving, and this dude, he's like, "Look at the cows!" He's rolling down the window. Moo! Just be patient. On that note, I'm not kidding you. You know what a prickly pear is? That fruit. Have you seen the leaves of that cactus? They got spikes that long. I swear to you, I saw a cow or a bull or something full on chewing on those cactus leaves, spikes and all. On those, we were driving back up there to get there. At one point, we were lost. I'm like, fucking $150 an hour, $150. He's like trying to get self signal so he can find out where we are. It's like, oh, we'll get there. Eventually, we did get there, and he was a little mad I didn't tell him about that topper on my van. I'm like, hold on, let me go grab my shovel. Let me go get my shovel, throw it in the van, and we get back, and man, yeah. So when the sheriffs came, they decided on which way to go out, and I had come in the more rugged way. So when we left the other direction, which would have been forward. But at one point, like when I was waiting, I was like, that morning, after when I was stuck out there, I took a rifle and a little bit of water, and I went walking to see what I was bidding on. And I'm thinking, I'm all the way back up here in dust. Like, do I want to spend money to come back up here for some silly movie? No. Big mistake, big mistake. Why am I telling you this? $1,000 tow bill. Actually, in all grace, this is the second time I've recorded this. The first time I got cut off halfway. And I think I'm going to buy QuickTime Pro, even though I use a PC, because you can apparently cut and move video around without having to reprocess the entire thing. So right now I'm just uploading the raw footage. I have Adobe, but I don't know if you've ever used Adobe, but if you just simply make it a little shorter and try and export it, forget it. It takes hours it has to recode everything. Whereas QuickTime Pro, supposedly, you can just cut it, splice it or whatever, and it won't reprocess it. It'll just stick it together and you're good to go. So I think I'm going to buy that. If I had that, I would have only recorded the second half. So that's my story about $1,000 tow bill. I'm sure I'm missing some weird, funny point in there. Because it was funny, it was weird. Enjoy.